YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here. Sorry I'm a little bit late getting videos out today, but I've got two sick kids. Oh man, that's been fun. They're like screaming fever. Yeah, just all the great stuff that goes with kids being sick. Anyway, I'm playing as the Dark Elves today. I've got a front line with 3 Hargoneth Executioners. I've got 4 Dread Spears, 2 Witch Elves, 4 Dark Shards, which is a lot. I've only got 2 Dark Riders and Malekith on a cold one to try and protect him. And all Malekith has in terms of spells is the one that buffs up his power reserves, and he's also got, what the heck is it called? The one that, oh crap, I'm going to remember the name of it here in just a second. It's Soul Stealer, that's what it was. So it basically takes the life out of the units that you cast it on. My opponent does have 1 Skink Chief here. I'm really quite pleased that he didn't spam these guys because they are incredibly overpowered right now at 445 missile damage. Very low price to get them up on a Pterodon, and they can completely ruin Lord units. They're kind of like a Lord Sniper unit. One of them's probably not going to be too bad to deal with. If you brought 2 of them like a lot of people have been doing recently, it'd be a problem. I like what my opponent's done with the Lizard Men, though, here. He's got Kroq-Gar rolling with some cavalry. I like how Kroq-Gar's kind of mobile away from the infantry force, and his infantry force is in no hurry because he's got a Skink Priest, Lord of Heavens, back here who's firing long-range bolts into my high-tier infantry. So it's going to force me forward, and then he's using these Chameleon Skinks and cavalry to look for opportunities on the flanks. My Dark Shards can keep him at bay, but I don't want to just sit back and take heavy missile damage. You can see my Hargoneth Executioners here have already suffered a pretty considerable loss of their force. So about a quarter of their unit is already dead and dying quickly. So this Skink Priest back here is getting some very worthwhile kills with its skirmishing, and it's going to still be tough in melee. And he's probably got Wind Blast, and yeah, Curse the Midnight Wind. So with 3 Hargoneth Executioners, my choice here was I'm going to bring some infantry that the Lizard Men are going to have a very hard time dealing with, because the Lizard Men are going to get torn. My infantry should crap all over his, and the goal here was he's going to get forced to try and plow through my back lines, where I've got Witch Elves and Malekith waiting to stop him. So he can either go for the Dark Shards and risk killing his main units that way, or he's got to use his main units to try and kill my Executioners, at which point my Dark Shards give him the business. So that's kind of my goal here, is to bring the Hargoneth Executioners. They're an absolute trump card over his infantry line, because normally Saurus Warriors do very good versus cheap infantry. So I took the risk here and spent the money on some very expensive infantry. This guy, incredible job. 27 kills before the battle even gets underway here. That thing's being super annoying. And I've got to be careful moving up that I don't get myself open to any early attacks. He's going to move way around my flank, but since he was so far back, this is fine. It gives me time to come in position. These Skink Skirmishers over here, they have a lot of ammo. If they're going to waste some of it on Dread Spears, that's actually probably okay with me at the moment. I'd rather him not spend it on Malekith. I'm going to use my Dark Shards to start to hurt his Skink Priest, try and get this guy to back up and stay away from my Executioners, but pretty well placed Wind Blast there. It doesn't do great, fortunately for me, but it disrupted me to where he can at least do this. He's going to use the Feral Cold Ones with the Skink cohort. But most places, my Hargoneth Executioners are going to absolutely shred his infantry, and now it's just a matter of guarding my Dark Shards, which that process is underway. So the Witch Elves, as you know, can drive enemy units crazy. And right here, I misclicked my Dark Shards. Apparently they're heading towards combat. Ooh, look at that. That was a beautiful little comet attack over there. Did some good damage on one of my Executioners, but you can see the Executioners are winning the battle quite soundly. So his Skink Chief is going to need to try and do something about them, but right now he's busy over here coming towards the flanks. I'm trying to drive Kroq-Gar crazy with the Witch Elves, but it's not working right off. So the good news is, though, is that Malekith can stay right on his tail and do a lot of damage, and now he's going to go crazy. The problem is I'm getting zerged by these Cold One Spear Riders. Even though I've got spears back here, they're just doing everything they can to pull through to my Dark Shards. And it's because a Lizard Man player knows that if they kill the Dark Shards from the Dark Elves, then it's game over. Like, you don't have the armor piercing to tear down a big dinosaur at that point. You can see a Skink Chief is going to come in. He's using Cold-Blooded, which will help heal, but it's also going to cost him. And then here his Skink Chief is going to come in and try and get rid of some Dark Shards. You can see, though, again, me spending this money to win the infantry fight so far has been worth it. We are going to get hit by this Feral Stegodon, which is going to hurt. But with the Lizardmen all going crazy up in here, and with the Saurus Oldblood I said Krotgar earlier, it's just a Saurus Oldblood. With him taking all that damage, it's going to be really beneficial for me. So, yeah, but the Executioners won the fight. I've even got one of them turned around and helping out back here. Saurus Oldblood is out, and I haven't lost most of my Dark Shards. He's going to get some regrouping units. I've even got some regrouped Dark Riders. But it's looking decent for me at the moment because I've got so many Dark Shards alive. If I can just keep them alive, we've definitely got a chance of winning, though. This is going to be a tough battle. Nice Wind Blast there from the Skink Priest, who has gotten a considerable number of kills. He mismicros his Skink Chief here for just a moment. You can see how quickly Dark Shards can punish units like that. Looks like the Saurus Oldblood coming in over here trying to get my regrouped cavalry. He's healing from the cold-blooded of another unit. So I'm going to send in Malekith. Malekith actually doing pretty good in melee here, but he is up against a Carnosaur, which is not going to be ideal. Again, Dark Shard's pretty much alive. Skink Chief gets chased out. He's keeping his Skink Priest at a very safe distance because he's hoping to use it in the late game, I would assume. But the infantry fight, again, there's still a few Hargoneth Executioners left over, and these guys are going to be tough for the Lizardmen to kill, very tough. And Witch Elves will do okay versus stuff like Skink Cohort, and then Dread Spears will hold for a little while, so we'll be okay. He's got his Chameleon Skinks coming in, trying to do more damage to my Dark Shards. I'm going to Soul Steal this Saurus Oldblood. He's running out of hit points, and I'm keeping Malekith basically all the way up at full health. So it's working out really good for me because Malekith is very much alive, and his hero units are in a lot of trouble. He's going to try and charge me with the Chameleon Skinks over here. I'm going to substitute the Witch Elves in here and try and get the Chameleon Skinks to go berserk. I'm using these Dark Riders. They're not great for this, but anything I can do to keep pressure on the Saurus Oldblood right now is very important. And then he's going to try, like I said here, see we drove the Chameleon Skinks berserk with the Witch Elves. That's why the Witch Elves are so handy. We're going to bring in Malekith. We got to stop this Skink Priest. We got to keep him out. And again, he just continues to zerg my Dark Shards, which is exactly what he should be doing. And I'm going to try and split up. See how I've split up a little bit here. Make it tricky for him. Use Malekith to slow people down. And just do my best to keep all these Dark Shards alive. They're going to take a lot of damage, but as long as even one or two of them is going to survive, then we'll win. And again, the infantry fight, 143 kills on that Hargoneth Executioner. It's paying dividends. So again, Dark Shard's taking some pretty serious damage, but the Witch Elves being handy, keeping his units away, making them go berserk. This is bad over here, though, where he's got some cold ones in the fight chasing out my Dark Shards, so it's starting to get a little more desperate with my Dark Shards. We still got a pretty healthy Skink Priest, but fortunately the Saurus Oldblood goes crazy, gets hit. There was a Wind Blast there, but it didn't do a ton of damage to my Witch Elves because they weren't formed up right. So still got Witch Elves, still got a very healthy Malekith, and I've got some Dark Shards that should return from routing, especially if this Cold One Spear Rider routes out, but this is bad where he's chasing them over here because then they most definitely won't come back from routing. But this Skink Chief isn't really a good matchup against Malekith, and as long as I can keep stuff like this away, we should be good. Again, I've still got a few Executioners over here, and they have executed a lot of Lizardmen infantry. But this is a tough fight. The Lizardmen with the dinosaurs, played by a good player, and in this case, this guy is a good player. He's quite a good player. And it'll make this a interesting, tough battle, in my opinion. A lot of times I like to opt for Malekith on the Dragon, but I think in this case Malekith on the Cold One ended up being much more effective. So I've got a few Dark Shards back, more Dark Shards that regrouped over here, and his Cold One Spear Rider's shattered, so it's very, very fortunate for me. I'm going to come over here and again just try and pin down the Skink Priest with these regrouped Riders. Skink Chief shattered, which means Malekith is safe from being skirmished to death. At this point, it is definitely looking in my favor. I'm going to just slow down these Chameleon Skinks and try and catch up to him. Again, I've got Dark Shards here that he should be chasing with the Skink Priest. But I'm going to, like I said, try and get rid of some of these Chameleon Skinks real quick, too. I'm hoping to drive them crazy with the Witch Elves. If we can berserk the Chameleon Skinks, it would be good. And then I'm bringing my other Dark Shards back. We do have some Berserk infantry over here that we'll have to re-intercept with the Executioners. But at this point, like I said, it's definitely looking to be in my favor. So the only thing we have left to deal with is this Skink Priest and his Stegodon. I say the only thing, it's not like that's nothing. But again, with the Witch Elves here, with Malekith, we've got options. Dark Shards, we'll start pouring fire from these Dark Shards over here. And we should see, yep, Skink Priest goes berserk and routes. So the interesting piece of this build, you'll notice that Malekith ends the battle at basically full health. If there was 2 Feral Carnosaurs, Malekith might be at some concern, but again, if they focus on Malekith, it lets the Dark Shards do their work. And if the dinosaurs are focused on the Dark Shards in the back line, then they're going to decisively lose an infantry fight. And I say decisively in the end, this ended up being a very close infantry fight because of my opponent's nice use of magic and his continual, pursuit. I mean, Saurus warriors are pretty good. They're pretty good regardless, but you can see I got a chevron on 2 of the Hargoneth executioners, which means that they did some good work. This one was still alive at the end. Only one of them, and I think this is the one that got crapped on by the spell, and it may look off the face of it like my Dark Shards didn't do much, but the Dark Shards drove the whole battle. They forced all of these units into the back lines. Right here, all of the Spear Riders, all the Cold Ones, the Saurus Old Blood, they forced them all into the back lines, and I was able to deal with them using the Witch Elves and Malekith. And because he lost these units in the back lines, trying to get the Dark Shards, again, it allowed the Hargoneth Executioners, look, Saurus Warriors dead, pretty much. This one completely dead. He had some skink cohorts, but these guys don't do a whole lot. You see what I mean? So the Hargoneth Executioners were, I think, the key piece of this build, in the sense that it gave me a piece of my infantry line that was going to make it difficult for him to get enough focus in any one given place, because these guys would take a focus in and of themselves to kill, and if he does that, then the focus isn't on the Dark Shards. So again, good opponent. He was actually ranked pretty high on the leaderboard, and I was kind of surprised that I was able to pull out a victory here. I had a really fun game with him, and that was a tough Lizardman build. I really liked his use of the Skink Priest long-range skirmishing. That's something I haven't really seen a player take advantage of before, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then the mix of different abilities where he used the Comet and the Wind Blast to get some good work done, so I thought that was pretty interesting. So he definitely was trying to deal with the Executioners and was near successful, it looks like. But the fact that his Saurus Old Blood wasn't Krokgar might have been my saving grace here, because Krokgar is a considerable amount stronger, and it would have been tough to deal with. But again, also like his pick here of all the cavalry. That allows him to put a lot of pressure back here, and he did. And again, almost worked. It's the Witch Elves that were really clutch here. When your units get driven berserk, you can't control them, and it makes it easier for the Dark Elf player, me in this case, to mop up the units that we need to, and then combine that with Malekith's soul stealing on your units that are back there. And you can usually clean up those type of units before you lose all your Dark Shards. Dark Shards are annoying, as are some other units in this game, in the sense that if you kill them, they'll like come back. They just keep regrouping. And so you end up with this annoying regrouping of Dark Shards when you're the Lizardmen. But in any case, I don't know, a lot of people I've heard are just like real frustrated with the Lizardmen right now because they feel like they're just a spammy faction. And they kind of are, in the sense that to really be good, you need to bring like 3 or 4 dinos and then mix them with Saurus Warriors, and they become a fairly predictable faction. There's a lot of units that I think people just get irritated by. I don't know. I definitely think that the Skink Chief, I mean, you look at this, the cost of 480, and they're 100 ammunition? Really? CA, please. Too much ammunition. If they're going to be cheap like this, which I'm okay with, then way less ammunition. But look at that, 830. I can put a Skink Chief, get rid of this thing right here because slippery, 750. I got a Skink Chief up in the air, and they're really good. I mean, they have 445 poison missile damage and 100 range. Yeah, so this unit right here definitely needs a nerf. But as far as the rest of the Lizardmen units, I think one of the ways you might get a little more variety in a Lizardman army is Temple Guards. These guys are too expensive. I say they're too expensive. They're too expensive for what you get out of them, so people don't typically use them. If you made Temple Guard a better unit, you might see more infantry builds from the Lizardmen, and that would be one thing. So does that mean you make it cheaper? Does that mean you just make its stats better? I mean, I definitely don't want to make it cheaper to where you can pick 4 or 5 dinos and a whole bunch of Temple Guard, but you know, I think that's one of the reasons. Like maybe if some of the dinosaurs were slightly more expensive and the Temple Guard was slightly less expensive, maybe you would see like a little bit better balance. I don't know. I'm just throwing some ideas out here. I'd be curious to see what you all think in terms of ways to make the Lizardmen a slightly more varied faction, because right now it makes very little sense to use something besides Krokgar and dinos. I mean, like, you rarely see people going with the Slan Mages because Krokgar is just so freaking good. And with all the healing and stuff, you can do a whole lot of work. But anyway, curious to get you guys' thoughts on the Lizardmen. HeirofCarthage signing out for now on this one. I will see you soon with some more Total War Warhammer 2 action.